Sure, here's the full, deeply emotional and cinematic story you asked for, crafted to hold YouTube viewers' attention from the first second to the last, with strong emotional beats, pacing, and a powerful ending message. Ma'am, I can make your daughter walk again, the man said quietly. His voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the entire courtroom. Even the judge froze mid-sentence, her gavel halfway down in her trembling hand. The man standing there wasn't a lawyer. He wasn't a doctor. He was a single dad, wearing a faded jacket, his boots worn, his face lined with years of pain and quiet endurance. Minutes ago, everyone thought they knew who he was, just another struggling father who had lost custody of his little girl after failing to pay bills, after life had beaten him down. But now, after those words, no one could look away. The judge, stern and composed, blinked as she slowly set the gavel down. "What did you just say?" He took a breath, his hands trembling slightly. "I said, I can make your daughter walk again, ma'am." Every whisper in the courtroom stopped. The prosecutor frowned, the bailiff froze, and the audience turned toward the judge's bench, realizing her secret: her daughter had been in a wheelchair for 3 years after a car accident. The judge, known for her cold professionalism, had never spoken publicly about it. Yet somehow, this man knew. His name was Daniel Carter. A single dad. A veteran who had once served as a combat medic overseas. He wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. But his hands had saved lives on battlefields no one would ever talk about. And now, those same hands were trembling, not from fear, but from something deeper. That morning had already been one of the hardest of his life. He'd come to court to fight for custody of his little girl, Lily, a 6-year-old with bright eyes and a weak leg after a birth complication. The judge had almost made her decision. The state wanted Lily to live with foster parents, arguing that Daniel didn't have the means to support her, that his PTSD made him unfit. But now, this man who had lost everything was offering something beyond human understanding: hope. The judge leaned forward, her voice cracking slightly. "How do you know about my daughter?" Daniel lowered his gaze. "Because, I helped treat a child with the same injury overseas. Nerve damage in the lower spine. I learned a method, something I developed myself, when we had no equipment, no hospitals. Just our hands and faith. I can't promise miracles, but I can try." For a moment, her courtroom felt less like a place of law and more like a place of faith. The judge stared at him, unsure whether to feel anger, disbelief, or something she hadn't felt in years: hope. He wasn't lying. The papers in front of her proved his military service, his medical commendations, his letters of honor. He wasn't some desperate fraud trying to gain sympathy. He was a man who'd seen life and death close enough to know what healing really meant. "Why would you offer that to me?" she finally asked. His eyes softened. "Because I know what it feels like to watch your child suffer, and feel powerless." The courtroom went silent again. Lily, sitting quietly behind him in her little wheelchair, peeked out, her small hand clutching the toy bear she always carried. "Daddy," she whispered. He turned and smiled through the tears in his eyes. "It's okay, sweetheart." Something inside the judge broke then. For years, she'd buried her pain behind rules and procedure. But now, sitting in front of a man who'd lost everything except love, she couldn't hide it anymore. "Case adjourned," she said abruptly, her voice shaking. "Mr. Carter, please stay." Over the next few weeks, the courtroom story that had gone viral on social media turned into something no one could have predicted. Daniel didn't just talk, he acted. The judge, against all odds, invited him to meet her daughter, Emily. Emily was 12, paralyzed from the waist down after a drunk driver hit their car. The doctors had told the judge to accept the truth: Emily would never walk again. But Daniel didn't see impossible. He saw a challenge he had faced before. For days, then weeks, Daniel visited. He worked gently, patiently, guiding Emily through nerve stimulation therapy, micro-movements, and improvised rehabilitation methods he had developed from his combat experience. He spoke to her kindly, with the same warmth he showed Lily, telling her stories about courage, about soldiers who refused to give up even when hope seemed gone. At first, nothing changed. Emily cried, frustrated. The judge doubted. The doctors called it false hope. But Daniel refused to quit. One rainy afternoon, something happened. Emily lifted her toes. Just a twitch, but it was there. The judge gasped, covering her mouth as tears filled her eyes. Daniel only smiled and whispered, "See that? That's your strength showing up." From there, progress came in inches, then in strides. Months later, the day finally arrived. Emily stood. Not perfectly, not for long, but enough. Enough for her mother to fall to her knees sobbing as Daniel stepped back quietly, giving them space. That night, the judge came to Daniel's small home. She stood in the doorway, her eyes swollen from tears. "You did what every doctor said couldn't be done," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "No, ma'am. Emily did it. I just reminded her she could." She looked past him and saw Lily drawing on the floor, her tiny leg trembling but stronger than before. "You're a good father, Mr. Carter," she said. "And a good man. I was wrong to ever think otherwise." When she left, she turned to him one last time. "You'll get full custody of your daughter. And more than that, you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever." "Hope?" he asked softly. She nodded, tears glistening. "Faith." Months later, a video surfaced, Emily walking across a small stage at her school, her mother filming through tears. The video spread across the internet, captioned simply, "The veteran who taught my daughter to walk again." At the end of that video, a clip played of Daniel and Lily together, both smiling, both standing strong. If you were watching this story on YouTube right now, you'd feel the same thing millions of viewers did, a lump in your throat, a spark of something warm in your chest. Because stories like this aren't about miracles, they're about the power of love, perseverance, and kindness. And before the screen fades to black, the narrator's voice echoes softly. Sometimes, the strongest healers are the ones who've been broken the most. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope today.